Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
ArtPod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler. Join me weekly every Saturday as I'm joined by a new guest who occupies a position within the visual arts community, ranging from fine arts, tattooing, framing, and logistics. All right, welcome to another episode of ArtPod. Today I am joined by Jesse Yende. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Did I? Great. Or also known as Jesse the Africanist.
The South Africanist.
The South Africanist. Yes. All right, a bit more local then.
Yes.
So I basically was introduced to you by Alex from BazArt, who organizes the International Public Arts Festival. And I said to him, please, can you hook me up with a street artist I could chat to for this podcast? And then after he sent me your details, I did a little bit of research and I said, oh, wow, a lot more than just a street artist. I mean, your accolades and the amount of things you've done is quite incredible. From your LinkedIn page, I've got founder, creative director at Taste My Waffle.
Yes.
So can you give a better introduction about yourself and then we'll take it from there?
Sure. Wow. Okay. I don't know where I start. It's always like a thing. So I'm Jesse, originally from Soweto. I used to say I recently moved down to Cape Town, but I've been here for quite some time now. So I think about 5 years now. So I'm almost a Cape Townian.
Almost.
Yeah.
What's it, 10 years?
Yeah. I'm almost a Cape Townian. And I think I started off as just an artist selling artwork on the side of the road. And then with the people that were buying my work, and then the relationships later led me to more interesting things. One thing in particular is the work that I used to produce back then, the people that were buying my work, they used to say, or rather the comment I was getting that your work is very graphic, And coming from the township in that time, I didn't even know what that word meant. So I used to get irritated a lot. Like, can you just buy, I want money and out of here, So I think they've said it a lot until it got to me. I was like, okay, let me go find out about what this stuff is, And then, from there, I think when I finally did find out what graphic is and all that stuff, then my life just changed, And then I got into advertising, got into broadcast design, set design, stage, So it's always been so. But I loved creating. I loved making stuff, and So I think that's just about a little bit in a nutshell of
a little taste of your life. Okay, so originally coming from Soweto, how did fine arts come into your being, or what was your first interaction with that?
Well, coming from, at that time, like, we never actually had any good stories related to being an artist. So, as you can imagine, like, I fought a lot with my parents. At one stage, I ended up getting kicked out because I was like, what future do you have as an artist? You can't do this. Go find a real job. Go get a real job, And I've tried stuff, And I remember what I think for me, that in Soweto, it was not a big thing, so you're seen as a loser, So to sort of redeem myself in that thing, I told my parents, okay, I want to do a craft design. They were like, yay, that sounds interesting. Okay, let's go find out what you need. They're like, no, you need mechanical engineering first background, and then you can, and then some little bit of aviation, and then you can qualify for actually the actual thing, of which I went and did. Just the basis of mechanical engineering and a bit of high-tech drafting. And then I went to go do my entrance exams. When I did them, I aced the exams, but then the challenge came. It was like, okay, you are in, but South Africa doesn't do aircraft design anymore, but you can apply and go overseas. And I was like, okay, do you guys have funding? Like, no, we don't fund you, but you're accepted. You can use that to go look for funding. And then that became a challenge. So then I looked at my mom, was like, ish, you know what? I can't. You see, there's no money here at home. No one is going to do. So I went back to just basically doing my art again, doing pottery, doing a little bit of that, but all of that was art related. And then I'll go to the markets and go sell, and then find different markets or spaces to actually sell my artwork. So that has been the life, and then until later I joined a printmaking studio in Joburg, which
Artist Proof Studios, correct?
Artist Proof Studio, yes. Artist Proof Studio.
So do you think a big part of that kind of engineering background really fed into your creative artistic output in your life?
I think it inspired me to actually want more, because I remember at that time, coming from a background where they said, as an artist, you're a loser, there's nothing you can do, But then when I found out later at college that actually, there are about 184 careers in art. This is when I went to my senior lecturer's office at that time, and then I was looking at some books on the bookshelf, and then this one photocopy paper came out. It fell out of this book, and then on it was written 184 careers in art. So coming from where I'm from, career and art didn't come together. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, this I'm going to prove. And guess what? Even interior design, even design for cargo ships and stuff like that was also on that paper, I was like, you can even design even interiors for planes and stuff. I was like, so this is all under art. And then for me, that was like, I ran back home. I was like, you see, there's a career. I can do something with that,
It's almost like a spiritual holy moment.
It's like,
it's definitely a sign.
Yeah.
So you went to Artist Proof Studio to study printmaking.
Yes.
Was there kind of what came from that? A certain kind of love for printmaking or a love for design?
I think even when I was there, like all the linos and the etching that I was doing, the comments were like, your work is very graphic. So that word kept on. And then I think at that time, the government introduced the map sitter. And then the map sitter was like, okay, they're going to train people in industrial printing, which is now printing of billboards and magazines and stuff. So I applied for that. And then I went to the South African Printing College. And then when I was there, I was so very, very blown away by everything there. I was like, I think I want to be here. And then I think a week later, they had different people to come and speak to the students. So they had this one guest lecturer. He was an old advertising guru. He came and just spoke about his life, basically, how he started and to where he is. Everything that he was saying, I was like, I want that. I couldn't wait for that meeting. As soon as the meeting ended, I ran to him. I was like, whatever it is, all of the stuff that you were talking about, I want it. He's like, no, all of it. I want all of it. I don't have time to explain, but I want that life that you've lived. Because it was actually relatively old, but I was still a young man. I was like, I want to go into the advertising space. I want to learn all those things that you were saying. And then he said to me, bring your portfolio tomorrow. And then I went home, brought it back the next day. And then he looked at all my artworks and my paintings. He was like, this is very graphic. I was like, yeah, I already know that. I've heard it a lot, And then he's like, okay, you know what? You need more help. You're not ready to go into advertising. I'll speak to some people. And then I was like, okay. And then the following week, I get a phone call from AAA. They're like, we met this guy. He said he knows you and said you're an amazing person. Do you want to come and see us? I was like, who is who? And then they actually spoke about him. So Mr. Graham Langmead. And then it was like, okay, we're going to, do you want to come and see us? Bring your work and stuff. So when I got there, then the rest was history. I remember walking at the foyer, at the main entrance of the reception area at the AAA School of Advertising in Joburg. At the time, they were still in Randburg. And then I went there. And then when I got there, I was like, wow, this is exactly where I want to be. Because you know how some places they'll have different accolades on the walls, certificates and stuff. But they were all different. It was not one thing. And for me, I was happy because now finally there's a place that can accommodate me that exists. I don't like doing one thing, but I can do multiple things, and still get recognition. And that's how I got in. And then, my life journey just started from there,
Amazing. It just feels like everything fell into place for you. And it all seems right and perfect. And I mean, yeah, you definitely, the rest is history, because upon researching you, I mean, the amount of agencies you've worked in,
Yes.
traveled very well.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at your body of work, you are very, very talented and very skilled, and you definitely have a certain eye. I think there's almost like a trained palette where that design element's, very strong. And I just see, what you're doing, and there's a sense of confidence in your work. And even the way meeting you now for the first time,
sure.
you carry yourself very, very well. When did you feel like I've kind of made it, or things are kind of sound and stable?
I think for me, I've never felt like I made it, even now, like
sure.
that, because that made it is like, what is it? It's not there, because I think my journey actually, what inspired me more at AAA, the final year, we had a competition hosted by Mr. Price and House and Leisure. And then I was announced the most versatile designer. And then I won the competition. So I was an overall winner for that competition. And then I went for a tour in London for 100% design. So when I got there, my eyes got really, really wide opened. I was like, wow, there's actually a bigger world. Like, and then when I looked at, I was honored for my versatility, because the piece that I did was not, it was multiple disciplines, but creating one product that you can actually sell at shops, stores rather, So when I looked at that, so when I came back, I was like, you know what, I'm going to look for spaces, and I'm going to live to make sure that basically, because we live in a world that doesn't celebrate versatility. They end up calling you jack of all trades. Why don't you master something, whatever? But I'm like, but look at this. This is disciplines within. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a creative. So in the creative space, So for me, it made sense, because one day we're going to be dealing with whatever for a client, and it'd be nicer to actually know what everybody's doing in the creative space to create this whatever the need is for the client, right? So for me, I found that thing as an inspiring thing, because also it makes my work easy with my fellow, especially when it comes to collaborating with the people that are going to be actually creating certain things or building certain things. So I wanted to know all of those things and go about around all of that. At least then I know my way around the creative space. So it was more that, but each time I would do that, but the world that I'll find myself in is like, no, you are too much. You are, So that kept on pushing me to this point until I decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own agency, which is Taste My Waffle. I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I think, I that's a fascinating point you put through about being versatile and being capable of doing all these things. And I mean, upon researching you, the term art director comes up a lot, and I think you filled that position many times. And I mean, I think describing your attitude, I think you are perfectly suited as an art director, as kind of a visionary and a team leader. And I think being able to have a kind of versatile taste or mind or opinion is so beneficial, because things can become very tight and I guess flat.
Exactly.
I mean, I think being an art director was perfectly suited for you. How did you find yourself getting into that kind of career? Well, that position, how did that open up?
I think that space, and when I look at my career, that's where I stayed the longest. Actually, when I think about that stuff that I've stuck through, I've spent the longest doing that, because I've really, really enjoyed it. Because, I mean, today is this client, the next day is another client, and you work with different people. So in a normal traditional agency, they will team you up with a writer. You'll have your partner who's a copywriter, but now I enjoyed working with different people. So sometimes I'll be working with this writer on this specific project, and sometimes I'll be working with another writer, or sometimes I'll be working with a team of people coming together with different minds just to create this one piece, So I think I enjoy myself more in that space, because it allows you to basically you don't have one way of thinking, but you take a lot, you feed a lot from people, to create this one perfect world, Yeah. So collaboration. So I think for me, art direction is really taken me to a different space, And when I look back to the artist that I was back then to the artist that I am today, I'm going like, no, man, And I thank God for the kind of leaders that I got in terms of in the form of my bosses and my creative directors. They would actually bring briefs that will actually push me, They're like, okay, fine, you are going to be art directing this, but not only art directing this because we saw that you have the skill for this. You're going to be executing this, and then after executing this, then you're going to be recording this, and then so it's like it was like a nice push. So I think that's why I stayed the longest there, because I had leaders who actually believed in pushing me,
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean that type of affirmation is so important, especially I think. In this industry, it's all about confidence, right? Kind of controlling a room or walking into a space and just feeling you have the ability to kind of handle and control, these certain situations or I guess clients.
Yes.
And I mean, making your own studio, was that a huge leap? Was it a scary time, or was it just all excitement?
I think a mix. Yeah, a mix, because you're like, you don't know where you really are going with this. You don't know if really it's going to happen or it's going to work out now. But at the same time, you're excited that, finally I'm getting to jump. I'm going to do something. I'm going to put something behind, like now I'm going to actually produce work that is from my studio, not from, it was a mix emotions. But I thank God for an amazing partner, which is my wife.
Okay.
So great support at home, So I think that helped me a lot, because this entrepreneurial journey is very, very lonely and very scary, And so with that, I've seen friends who started it, but actually along the way they fell off, And it's because of the pressures that come with it, And sometimes you have a perfect picture in your mind that, okay, here's a plan, here's on paper, the business plan makes sense, but the life just happens, And when life happens, what do you have to kick back to, So
No, for sure. I mean, also I think when you say working for a company, that responsibility is shared with success and especially failure. I think it is nice that it just doesn't all end with you. And I think either for independent artists, they don't have that kind of reliance of a team. And I guess being an entrepreneur and starting a business, the buck ends with you.
Yes.
And if things go wrong, you're the one who has to bite the bullet.
Yes.
But I mean, I think it's fantastic. My previous guest, also Alzan, she opened up a space in Hout Bay Contemporary. And I just think it's so important for young people to take on an entrepreneurship role.
Yes.
And I think that's definitely a huge future in the economy, and especially in this African economy or just kind of culture. I think there's this huge emphasis on academia, which is important, but I think ultimately it's that kind of practical function. And you find like small business owners actually give back the most in terms of employment or opportunity, or even just giving back culturally. And so how long has your business been running for now?
Since 2013.
Amazing.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't, because in my research, I didn't really pick that up. Well, I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, since 2013, So the ins and outs, the ups and downs, and So
did you start that company in Joburg?
No. I see. When I got here,
but then you're a 7-year-old Cape Townian, not 6 years.
6 years. Yes.
Add an extra year.
Yes. You should see there, my math there.
And I mean, what was the big shift from moving from Joburg to Cape Town? Was it marketplace or?
No, actually, the move to Cape Town was not related. It was not work related. It was more of a spiritual journey. So it was me just finding God and offering myself, because I serve a lot at church. I'm very, very involved, and so it was more on connecting more to that and basically serving and getting closer to people who need support and stuff. So it was more that. So I think I spent. So the move from Joburg was like cut off, like literally everything that I used to do just switched off. I switched off completely, and then like literally my life went like this and 360. to fully that. And then after that, and then I was like, okay, now I'm ready to get back. My heart is in the good space, my mind, I mean, like, because I mean, coming from a background of a lot of strife and a lot of broken family, a lot of even relationships and all that stuff. So I've also felt like I was also not in a good space, even though my career had everything going for me in my career, but I felt that I was taking that heart still with me into those spaces and not realizing that I'm meeting other people, and you know how negativity, or rather, you know how stuff is contagious, whether you are feeling good or feeling bad, whatever it is that you're carrying is contagious, right? So I was like looking at myself like, I'm going to be contaminating every space that I go to, because realizing that the success of my work will open new doors, right? But as it opens these new doors, I'm carrying this monster with me into those spaces, and that monster one day is going to actually be my downfall, So I was like, I gotta actually just make sure that I shut, and there's not something like hectic like, you gotta, it's just basically the heart. Like, if your heart is not good, like it may seem small, but unforgiveness, you don't know how to forgive. So if you've got a 10-year of worth of not forgiving, right, when you get to a space, even somebody does even a small thing, because you're already that person who's not forgiving, so you're just gonna mess up stuff. And in life, what are you without relationships?
Sure.
And in relationships, things are gonna happen. Sometimes I'm gonna step on your toe, or tomorrow you're gonna step on my toe. But it's life. Things happen, But if you haven't actually taught yourself to actually let go of stuff, So I had to go through that process and just re-heal myself spiritually, and so.
For sure, I think people forget that relationships, especially in business and in personal life, is such a huge part of your existence. And I mean, I even have something relatable, coming from Durban to Cape Town. I think I was here. I'm also around 7 years.
Yes. Oh, wow.
But it's about, there was a certain life, and there were certain things I didn't like, or I wanted to escape, and then there's almost a thing of just cutting it off. As you say, like almost like a bit of poison.
Exactly. Yes.
It's just nice, coming to Cape Town, nobody knowing me, and it was just like a
perfect restart.
It's a restart, like a reinventing, and all the things you've learned, you can just now bring, and then kind of start this new being.
Exactly. I mean, when I look at it now, I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't even have launched this initiative, the South Africanist. I wouldn't have even gone there, because the South Africanist is all about now loving the nation, loving the land, I looked at what we've been trying to do historically, Africanist. Africa is very big. I mean, there's too many countries, and ourselves in South Africa, we've got 9 provinces, but we've got so much going on in there. But I had to ask myself questions that, what do I know about what's happening in other provinces, and how involved am I, or what difference am I making where I am, And, what they say is like, once you start putting your name on something, it's very difficult to be negative about it. I was also of a view like, South Africa is not worth staying. I'm going to just go somewhere else and stuff, But then I had to change my attitude again. Is like, let me call myself this, So when I call myself a South Africanist, is that now, what does it really, really mean? So I had to ask myself real questions about that. What does it mean? And then it came down to, how am I contributing to making this country amazing? What am I doing in my little corner? And what are those little things that I'm doing? And that message, can it be taken by someone else to translate it into their own little corner, So I think I wouldn't have, had I not been in this space of just completely, like, excuse the word, but I felt like a foreigner coming here. You don't know anybody, no one knows you, and it's like,
It's hard to make friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Very hard to make friends in Cape Town.
It's very difficult. And so spend like a lot of time alone, and that's basically like moment of reflection, extended reflection time, So I think, that's just it's an amazing, and I'm very, very inspired to keep going.
That's great. And I think that kind of attitude of, kind of healing oneself before trying to heal others is definitely a sensible way of going forward, And I think it's always, even chatting again with my previous guest, we were just talking about giving back. And I think sometimes people take on these big problems or these huge, these solutions that are so out of reach and people don't know how to tackle it. But I think when you can, your immediate surroundings or people around you, if you can make those changes, I think that's how things change and the world changes.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just kind of more community than these kind of global things.
You know what our stance is with the South Africanist is today's possibilities, tomorrow's solutions.
Sure.
So what that says is that let's allow people the opportunity to experience their positive impact on someone else on each day, right? So if I've allowed you that to see it, right, and then tomorrow we've got something to talk about. You know what I mean? Because remember what you did yesterday? So let's do it again tomorrow. You know what I mean? Instead of worried about the 10 million things or we don't have, you know what I mean? Let's do those little things because they are actually going to, by the time you know it, it's a month. It's a year of awesomeness that you've been, involved in, So that's the stance with the South Africanist, today's possibilities, tomorrow's solutions. Look at what can I give you now? Now,
sure.
Yeah. So it forces you to even think literally, and very pragmatic as well. Okay, here's what I can do with this now. And also don't overcommit. Don't promise the world because you don't have, what I mean? Yeah. So let's live it to today. This is what's needed today. Let me do what's needed today.
Yeah. People underestimate small victories. Small victories are super, super rewarding.
Exactly.
Totally. And so the South Africanist, that's kind of a big project you've been working on. How do people listening kind of get involved with that or?
Okay, so currently now we're actually just working on the website. We hoping to be launching at the end of this month.
Okay.
And in terms of how can people get involved, there's different ways. There's one, they can actually invite me to their spaces to come and share about the South Africanist, and I will run some workshops, do workshops with them, or they can share our story, or they can follow us on, currently now we're just using Instagram and Facebook until we have our website, which is the South Africanist. And also because we go to different spaces and communities, and by communities, currently the word community, when you think community, people think previously disadvantaged or poor or whatever when you say community, but actually community is about people coming together around a common unity, you know what I mean? So there's a community of artists, community of scientists, and then my job is to say, let's encourage cross-community collaboration for nation building. So I could be going, for instance, there's an orphanage in Salt River. I go there, and then when I'm there, okay, as an artist, there's something that there's a need that's there, I can meet as an artist. But after the painting is done, the walls are nice, but there's people who live there. So maybe it's a social issue, maybe it's an education issue, maybe it's you know what I mean? So there, I can just tap into a social community or a scientific education community to come, let's collaborate and render some service here, because there's more people that need help than those who are actually giving it.
Sure.
So that's another way as well that people can also get involved as well, And every day, let us know as well, whatever it is you're doing in your little corner, we'll be glad to actually come and lend a hand as well, because it's more about all of us, because we're all responsible for the reputation of our nation, right? So if you are, for example, you're in Mpumalanga, whatever happens in Mpumalanga, I should really care about that and know about that, and let other people know, about that stuff. So all of that culminatively to actually create this amazing country that all of us belong to.
Okay, and that's almost a bit of a segue into the street art element,
yes.
Which initially I got you in for,
yes.
but definitely so many other things I want to chat about. So street art, what's your relationship with that, and how did you get involved with
street art?
Street art, yeah.
I think I was looking for, using the advertising and research background, is that I looked at, because of the South Africanist, I asked myself, okay, this movement, who is it for? It's for everyone, right? And where do you find everybody? Everybody walks the streets. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to go introduce the South Africanist in the streets. I'm going to do walls. I'm going to do whatever it is in the streets. I'm going to go out there with that. So that's how I actually started going into spray canning and and graffiti and just doing painting on walls and stuff. So it is, that's how I actually got into it. Because I enjoyed it because it made sense to me. Because then I'll get to meet people and then we'll get to converse, and get to chat, and it will just open me up as well to a lot of possible things that I was not even aware of. Because sometimes when you have spend too much time in your mind with an amazing idea,
sure,
but when you get out there, actually you just realize that actually it is maybe not that great, or maybe it is great. It just needs more from you, So that's how I got into the street art space, and also being in the city that. Compared to Joburg, Cape Town has got a lot of that compared to Joburg. So I was like, I want to even know the guys that are here. I also want to introduce myself to the crews that are here, so at least I can know the people in the different corners and stuff. So it was more about getting to know people and finding people.
No, for sure. I mean, going back to people saying like, I see a lot of design in your work.
Yes.
I mean, looking at your graffiti, there's almost a big sense of planning beforehand. It just seems like I think that's the whole thing of design. I think fine art, it's like you can shift and change as you're going along.
Yes.
There's a sense of like, it's a very confident design and everything's ready there, and then you execute it, immaculately. And I know you use like a lot of tools like stencils and so on, which are, I guess, kind of graphic elements.
Yes.
I think with street art, there's always the sense of scale. How did you find that shift? Scales.
I'll tell you, that thing. I think it took me out of my comfort zone. Because from doing stuff of like, I've never done anything larger than a meter, and then I met Alex and them, and then I got into the street art festival, and then they gave me like a 14-meter wall. I was like, my word, can you be real? I was like, I was never so shaken. I was like, I remember like even preparing for it, like before even preparing, because they told me, okay, now you're gonna do this. I thought, okay, fine, I'll do like maybe a door. The biggest thing I'll do like a door,
yes.
And I wasn't expecting that much, And then the time came to actually, it's like, okay, fine, we're gonna introduce you to your wall. I was like, okay, this is so serious, okay. And I was joking around, like, oh, you're introducing me to my wall. Okay, I'm gonna go meet my wall. And then I get there, here's this ginormous 14-meter that actually ended up becoming like a 20 plus another 10. And it's like, it just went like crazy, like, So I was like, wow. And then I think coming from there, I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this. And then I wanted more. I went to look for walls, and especially with design is, I like work that's challenging me to do stuff that you've never done before. So I look for very obscure spaces that, the space, nothing can be done in the space. Okay, let's turn it around. It's got walls, let's turn it around, and that has introduced me into the property space, and I've met a lot of people now in the property, and via the business, there's a property group that I'm now affiliating with. So they're doing a lot of developments around the country. They're actually one of the largest listed companies in Jesse. So, sitting with them and looking at all their plans, I was like, and here's me with surface design, with walls and all that stuff. It's like, it opened me up to another world of opportunities. But I was so fortunate, and I'm very grateful for that experience of, dude, here's your 14 meters, you can do this, But I think if I had not done that, I don't think I'll have any confidence to go tackle anything that's larger than that.
For sure. I had kind of the similar thing. They came to me and offered me a wall, and it's something I never really ever did.
Yes.
And but then once you do one, the bug bites.
Yeah.
And it's like when the opportunity comes, I'll definitely jump and take on a mural. Yeah. But it's amazing. It almost, chatting to you, I would almost describe you now as a brand. Like, it just seems now that when you apply your name, as you say, or energy to something, there's kind of a transformation. Do you kind of see yourself as a brand?
Yes, I am.
You are a brand.
Yes, I do, because I also that's my passion first, is before the artwork and all that. My passion is with the people. And using the background of brand communication, all that stuff, I always try to teach people basically of who they are as brands. Understand yourself as a brand from in the context of home, right? And then in the context of you in social spaces, in the context of you whether at work or at school, and then in general, you know what I mean? Like, and then from there, help somebody identify who they are. And I've got this thing, this diagram that I do each time I do coaching, is that in the center you draw one box, and then around it you draw 5. But the middle one, that's the one you're responsible of. You call it the happy box. So basically, that's what defines Claude. Like, this is the Claude that you love to be, and your responsibility is to make sure that Claude stays. You know. So each time I find Claude not okay, I know that you've taken stuff that you're not supposed to take into the happy box. You know. So because life happens, but you still have control of what you want to take in there. You choose. You know. You've got no control of stuff that happens outside of you, but inside of you, you've got every control, because you can decide that, okay, I'm going to take offense to this, or I'm not going to take offense to this. I'm going to laugh at this. I'm going to deal with this. You know what I mean? So it's more that. So as a brand, understanding that, and then also in the context of siblings. You know, if you ever like find yourself like, why am I always the one who's doing this? Why am I always the one who's doing it? It's because you've positioned yourself as somebody who's readily available for that, because each time they come to you for that, you are gladly doing it. So not knowing that one day you're going to get tired, but actually guess what? You've built a reputation around your brand that is reliable for a specific thing. So that's why you all the time with that, you know?
No, for sure. And I think for a lot of young creatives, and especially in today's economy and world, I mean, even our phones have cameras always facing us. Yes. I think the idea of artists or designers and creatives kind of seeing themselves as a brand is such an important strategy, and it's so important in today's world. And maybe back in the day, you know, I was an artist and then I exhibit in this gallery, and that's the system. Now you find, like, even with celebrity now and actors, you always, you know, they have YouTube channels, they have these social pages. It's all part of the package now, and that's what people, I guess, expect.
And engaging with.
And engage with. And I think, brand power is power.
Exactly.
right now. And then with the International Public Arts Festival, which year was that? Because when the first thing that popped up of your street art was a McDonald's mural you did.
Oh, so the McDonald's came after.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so McDonald's was last year. So actually, all of that was last year. The EPUF was last year as well, early in the year.
Yes, February.
Like in February, yes. And then the McDonald's was later in the year, like in August. So a lot of stuff happened in just that 1 year.
Yeah, the momentum.
Yeah, I just went. Because I remember 2 months later, I did a restaurant in Loop Street at House of H, and then I did more. I know, it was like,
Sure.
It was like, I know, it's like, I did a lot of stuff, like, actually, but it's funny how it just went by, like.
Almost like you were doing catch up, like you were always meant to do this,
you know,
and just making up for lost time.
Exactly.
No, great. I think, we're short on time, but it was, I really enjoyed chatting with you. It was lovely meeting you.
Thank you.
And I love your story. I mean, it's so inspirational in terms of just being this Africanist and just showing, kind of an amazing journey and, getting people pumped, I guess.
Sure.
Thank you for doing that. So if people want to contact you, can you, please just promote your businesses quickly and your Instagram, all that?
Okay, cool. So for my business is tastemywaffle.com. That's our website. And then everything is on there. My emails and everything is contactable there. And then on that as well, I also got a link to I call it my passion project, which is the South Africanist, which is also alive on Instagram. And you can find me there on Instagram. And but if you need any brand work, whether strategy, whether web design, whether you want to communicate to a different market, whatever needs you have, advertising, all that creative space. But just tastemywaffle.com.
You're definitely the man to call, and thank you so much for listening, and catch me next week with Chris Denovan. All the best. Cheers. ArtPod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler and produced by the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.